Fear is a motivator. Fear is a motivator for me. That's what I want to talk about. I don't remember why I started thinking about this. Just came into my head sometime yesterday, and I wish I could recall what initiated that whole process, because I don't recall at all. Uh, this is definitely one of those things I want to explore just because I haven't really thought about it much since whatever it was yesterday that brought it to my attention. It made me want to kind of discuss and figure out what where I'm at with that. Um, yeah, fear as a motivator isn't a thing that I feel too much. Oh, now I remember. I was reading something, and this person was talking about, yeah, just about like not necessarily being an adrenaline junkie, but like not having fear for a lot of things, and how that can be um, this weird motivator for them in other areas of their life. I don't remember the details now, but I do remember where I got it from, and it was Note to Self, this book by a gentleman I forget the name of. Anyway, when I think about applying that to myself, I like in the forefront. I don't see fear as a motivator to do some things. I think some people. So let's just cut right down to it. If I think about mortality, and I'm very scared of mortality, we could apply fear of death to my desire to leave something behind, to leave a legacy, because I feel like that would be the only way to um, conquer death, even though it's not satisfying, because that type of. I mean, it would be the same if, like, oh, your consciousness could live forever. I don't want. That's not what I want. I want the type of life that I have now. I mean, in the body and brain and soul and heart and mind, whatever. That's what I want, and not having that, nothing else is going to really satisfy what I want, which is that. So, leaving behind a legacy in order to combat fear of death might be a way that fear motivates me, but I can't tell. It's just not strong enough. Like, I can't think of any things that I have that are so strong of fears that they motivate me to do things. Like, because you'd think that if death was such a huge fear, that's the thing, I can put it in the back of my mind very often. I think of it every once in a while, probably too much, and then it goes away. And I'm great. I'm great. I think it's great that I have that thing in my consciousness that just decides we'll just leave that in the back. Like, we don't need to deal with that right now. And I'm glad, because if it was at the forefront of my mind all the time, it'd be harder to function. Because I do get anxious when I think about death in some certain ways, and I don't like it. But yeah, it would be a lot harder to deal with if what am I saying? Yeah, if I just couldn't push it to the back of my mind. So, and I think you would think that if I was super scared of death, like on a daily basis, I would be doing more about it, right? Because like physical health is important, and I don't do enough to put myself in a position to live longer. It's not saying that I don't do anything. I just don't do it to the degree. If it was like, man, you must be really, like, you're super scared of death, that I would be doing all these things, that fear would be motivating my choices. But that's the thing, is fear doesn't motivate my choices a lot of the time. And anxiety does, to a degree, but fear and anxiety sometimes overlap a lot, and sometimes they're different. Because, I mean, where they overlap for me is with talking about mortality. Like, that gives me anxiety as well, because it's just like this big unknown thing that's going to happen that I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be like, and I already know that I'm not going to like it. But it's about this unknown thing that I don't have control over. Unknown things that I don't have control over give me pretty not fun anxiety. It's at times unmanageable anxiety that I don't know how to cope with properly, and I need to do that. So there's definitely, yeah. Anxiety, I guess, motivates some of my actions more than fear does. And fear isn't strong enough for me to actually change or to like guide my life. Um, Maybe that's one reason why, Christianity and stuff didn't really, that whole God fearing thing isn't a factor for me. It's not a thing that motivates me to act a certain way. Um, and even like a fear of being alone doesn't make me want to change my behaviors so that I'm a better person so that I won't be alone. Yeah, that's the thing. It's interesting because fear is a motivator, because like if I used fear as a motivator for for legacy purposes, then you'd think I'd have a much better discipline, like just a better work ethic. Um, Same thing if it was about like my physical health, like I would have a better work ethic or better self control and like diet and better willpower, and I don't. That's like a struggle for me. And same thing like when it comes to relationships of any kind, but just like for me to change as a person, I mean, I really firmly believe it's because it has to come from me, right? And it's not from fear. I don't believe that people really, generally speaking, I would be skeptical about people who change for other people or people who initiate change out of fear of like losing somebody or whatever. I just feel like those changes have to be made because the person, the individual who's making the changes needs to do it for the right reasons. I don't think doing it for someone else is the right reason. I think that someone else can help make you realize that you need to make a change within yourself. And maybe part of that initial inquiry into the self is brought about through pain or concern and fear that someone might exit your life that you don't want to exit. And maybe that is a wake-up call. But that has to awaken the real reasoning. Like that has to awaken the real motivation of, I want to be a better person. I recognize that these traits in myself are not good for myself or for others, and I want to change those things to be better for myself. And I don't believe in altruism, so I really do think that not wanting to lose a person obviously is a selfish thing. And saying I want to be better for other people is really because you want to be better for other people so that you can do better for yourself. I mean, that would be like if you were really bad at communicating diplomatically within your job, your career, people you work with. Obviously, you would want to do better, not just because you maybe care about those people's feelings, whatever, but you care about preserving your job, right? So there's a lot of layers because, like I said, I don't believe in altruism. But I do believe that working on the self is the true, like, that is the thing. That is, like, if you want to be a better parent, that is also self-serving. Like, if you can parent kids better, then that would serve you better, too. Your relationship with them would be better, thus things would be easier in a really already immensely difficult situation. So, I just think it's funny, not funny, but I don't know. It just clicked the other day, just yesterday, that I was like, man, fear isn't really a factor for me in motivating me to just be or to change, right? Like, or to it's just not. Like, I want to do better because I don't. It's just like that is the journey of life, is just like figuring out who you are and trying to do better when you find the things that you can improve upon. And a lot of that is just so that you can have a better quality of life. And you can, and maybe part of that, it depends on your view of things, but part of having a better quality of life might be enriching the lives of those around you, right? And I really feel like that can be a reciprocal, beautiful thing. and it's interesting too. This is just a draw from the dark, but Donnie Darko actually there's this scale of like fear and love, and that apparently they put everything into these two categories, and it's kind of a spectrum, I guess, because there's like a line. I don't know why I said scale. There's a I don't know. But they're supposed to be putting these situations, these scenarios, on one end of the spectrum of fear or love, and that's just interesting. Because, like, I wonder how many good things come out of fear. I think that some good things probably could. Again, but they'd be like an initial spark, right? Because I guess fear, to me, doesn't seem to have enough weight or substance because you're scared of something else. No, that's not true, because you can be scared of yourself. But I guess if you're scared of yourself, that is a good motivating factor for change. But I suppose most fears are fear of something or someone else, or something happening or not happening. And I think when it comes down to those things, it's not great for motivating one to do better for the right reasons, because I think those fears can be fleeting. And that if that is your gas for creating change within yourself, that well will run dry. I think that for some reason or another, that fear may not be there anymore, and therefore you can't rely on that. And maybe the fear's not there anymore because you've coped with it or you've dealt with it in a positive way. You're not scared of that thing. I don't know, man, this is really tough. Because I guess I can't put fear in a specific box, right? I can't say it's good or bad. But it's really hard for me to give it a lot of depth and substance as something to motivate one for positive change, because it doesn't seem to just be consistent enough, whereas like a virtuous motivator, I think the pursuit of truth, and I don't know, I guess I'm putting it in the wrong place, because I think one can have a pursuit of truth, but do you have a pursuit of truth because fear of something else? Like, how much does fear drive positivity and change in a person? I just think there's always something behind the fear. It's usually there's something, and behind that sometimes is fear, but fear of what? And there's something behind that, like the layers that come with that. Because I know I get anxious with change. I don't know if I am scared of change. I can say I don't like change. I don't like the unknown. I wouldn't say I am scared of the unknown, but I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't want to have to deal with it. And it causes disruption within me, but I wouldn't say it scares me. And it's not because I don't feel fear. I definitely do. But for me, fear is really fleeting, and it's not a state that I live in for very long. I would say that I am scared of sadness. There we go. I am afraid of being sad because I don't have enough control over that emotion. I don't have enough control over that. Therefore, that does scare me when I go down that road. I know it enough to know that I don't have enough control over it. There is a fear. I mentioned fear of death, for sure. But again, these things aren't strong enough, or I'm just not a fear-motivated person, I guess is what it comes down to, and what I'm talking about. That they don't create enough motivation for me to do certain things to make those scenarios better. Like, fear of death doesn't make me want to just figure out a way to accept death, although I feel like I'm in a place where I wonder if I ever will be able to just have an acceptance there to make life easier. But again, it just isn't in the forefront of my mind because death and my fears are not in the forefront of my mind. And maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe if they were, I would be working harder to be in a different place than I'm in currently, and I would be doing things differently, right? Like if I have a fear that I'm just gonna, I don't know, I do have fears, right? But they're not strong enough necessarily for me to work as hard as I should work. Maybe that part of me is lacking. Maybe it's more present in other people, and it would be helpful for me. I've talked about shame being a motivator. And that's not a big motivator for me either. But I think part of that is also just like self-shame is what I think I was speaking of specifically. It could be useful. I think it would be useful for me to utilize both of those things. And I think there are things that people generally think of as negative, even like me too. I kind of started this out this way. But like I wonder how much more motivating they would be versus like going to a place of love, like self-love and self-care and those things. Maybe that is not a strong enough by itself. And maybe it's not balanced enough for me, again, to really make the changes that I want to make. And maybe I need to introduce fear in my life a little more as a motivator for a change, positive change. See you on another time.